The arrival. The sleek obsidian ship sliced through Earth's atmosphere, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence that bent light around its contours. To the untrained eye, it might have appeared as nothing more than a shooting star, a fleeting streak of light in the night sky. But this was no celestial body hurtling towards the planet's surface. This was Zex, the most feared assassin in the Galactic Confederacy, and he had come to Earth with a singular purpose. As his ship descended, Zex's crimson eyes scanned the primitive sensors before him. The corners of his thin, gray lips curled into a sneer. These humans, with their quaint satellites and radar systems, hadn't even detected his approach. It was almost insulting how easy this mission would be. Computer. Zex's gravelly voice broke the silence of the cockpit. Analyze the target area. A holographic display flickered to life, showcasing a dense forest nestled between craggy mountains. A blinking red dot pulsed at the heart of the wilderness. Target located. The ship's AI responded in a monotone. Biosignature matches that of Krell Vox, former Galactic Counselor. Current status: alive. Zex nodded, his long, nimble fingers dancing across the control panel. Engage landing sequence. Stealth protocols at maximum. The ship responded instantly, its engines shifting to a near-silent hum as it glided towards a small clearing. As they neared the ground, Zex allowed himself a moment of contemplation. Krell Vox had been on the run for nearly a solar cycle, evading the Confederacy's best hunters. It was almost poetic that the disgraced politician had chosen to hide on this backwater planet, among creatures that had barely mastered space travel. With a soft thud, the ship touched down. The forest around them remained undisturbed, not a single leaf out of place. Zex rose from his seat, his tall, lithe frame unfolding like a predator ready to strike. He moved to the ship's armory, selecting his weapons with practiced precision. First, the nanoblade, a weapon that could slice through nearly any material in the known universe. Then, his pulse disruptor, capable of stopping any biological entity's vital functions with a single shot. Finally, he donned his personal shield generator, a device that would render him nearly invulnerable to primitive Earth weapons. As the ship's hatch hissed open, Zex took his first breath of Earth air. It was heavy, leaden with moisture and the scent of vegetation. He wrinkled his nose in distaste. "Computer, final system check," he commanded as he stepped onto the soft forest floor. "All systems operational," the AI confirmed. "Cloaking field active. Warning. Unexpected electromagnetic interference detected in the vicinity. Source unknown." Zex paused, his antennae twitching slightly. "Elaborate." "Unable to pinpoint exact source," the AI replied. "Interference pattern does not match known Earth technology." For a moment, a flicker of unease passed through Zex, but he quickly dismissed it. Even if the humans had some unknown technology, it was inconsequential. He was Zex, the shadow of death itself. No primitive world could hope to challenge him. With silent steps, Zex began his hunt. The forest was alive with sounds, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of Earth creatures. But to Zex, it was all background noise. His focus was singular, his senses attuned to the faintest trace of his quarry. As he moved deeper into the woods, Zex couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The shadows seemed to move in unnatural ways, and more than once, he could have sworn he heard the snap of a twig behind him. But each time he turned, there was nothing. "Paranoia," he muttered to himself. "This primitive planet is getting to you." After an hour of tracking, Zex found himself at the mouth of a cave. His sensors pulsed, confirming Krell's presence inside. A smile spread across Zex's face, revealing razor-sharp teeth. The hunt was nearly over. But as he took a step towards the cave entrance, a sound cut through the air, the unmistakable twang of a bowstring. Zex's enhanced reflexes kicked in, and he dodged to the side just as an arrow whistled past his head, embedding itself in a nearby tree with a solid thunk. For a moment, Zex stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. An arrow. Some primitive human had dared to attack him with a bow and arrow. A laugh bubbled up from his chest, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the forest. Is this the best Earth has to offer? He called out, his voice dripping with disdain. Come out, little human. Let me show you what real weapons can do. Silence answered him. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Zex activated his scanner, sweeping the area for life signs. But to his shock, the readout came back blank. Impossible. He had just been attacked. Someone had to be out there. Another arrow flew from the shadows, this one grazing Zex's arm. He hissed in pain and surprise. How had it penetrated his shield? Computer, he snarled into his wrist communicator. Analyze the projectile. There was a moment of silence before the AI responded. Analysis complete. Projectile composition. Carbon fiber shaft. Steel tip. Anomaly detected. Tip coated with unknown compound. Compound appears to generate localized electromagnetic disruption field. Zex's eyes widened. These humans, these primitives, had developed a way to counteract his advanced technology. Impossible. It had to be a coincidence, a quirk of their primitive metallurgy. But as a third arrow whizzed by, missing him by mere centimeters, Zex was forced to reconsider his assumptions. This was no random attack. Someone out there knew exactly what they were doing. For the first time since landing on Earth, Zex felt a twinge of fear. He had come to this planet expecting an easy kill, a simple retrieval of a fugitive. Instead, he found himself under attack by an unseen enemy, his technology failing him in the face of what should have been an obsolete weapon. Show yourself. Zex roared, his composure slipping. He activated his nano-blade, the weapon humming to life with a menacing glow. Face me, coward. From the shadows of the forest, a voice replied. Calm, steady, and unmistakably human. You're the one who came to our world uninvited, alien. You're the one who underestimated us. Zex spun, trying to pinpoint the source of the voice, but it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, as if the forest itself was speaking to him. You think your fancy gadgets make you superior, the voice continued. But you forget, we've been surviving on this world for millennia. We've faced predators, disease, natural disasters. Did you really think we wouldn't be ready for threats from beyond our stars? Another arrow flew, and this time, Zex wasn't fast enough. It struck his shoulder, piercing his armor with ease. He stumbled back, gasping in pain and shock. Impossible, he muttered, staring at the arrow protruding from his body. This can't be happening. Oh, but it is, the voice replied. Closer now. Welcome to Earth, assassin. I hope you enjoy your stay. As the words faded, the forest erupted into chaos. Arrows rained down from all directions, each one finding its mark with unerring accuracy. Zex's shield flickered and died, his armor cracking under the onslaught. In desperation, he activated his emergency beacon, calling for extraction. But even as he did so, he knew it was too late. His ship, his lifeline, exploded in a brilliant fireball, lighting up the night sky. Zex fell to his knees, his body racked with pain, his mind reeling from the sudden reversal of fortune. How had it come to this? How had he, the galaxy's most feared assassin, been bested by creatures he had dismissed as primitive? As consciousness began to fade, Zex saw a figure step out of the shadows. A human, clad in simple clothing, a bow held loosely in hand. The human's eyes met Zex's, and in them, the alien saw not triumph or hatred, but a quiet determination. Who? What are you? Zex managed to gasp. The human smiled, a small, grim expression. We're humanity. And you, my friend, have made a grave miscalculation. As darkness claimed him, Zex's last thought was one of bitter irony. He had come to Earth seeking an easy target, only to find that he had become the prey. And as consciousness slipped away, He realized that the galaxy had grossly underestimated this little blue planet and its inhabitants. The hunt, it seemed, was only just beginning. The hunt. Consciousness returned to Zex in waves, each one bringing with it a fresh surge of pain and humiliation. His eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the dim light of what appeared to be a crude wooden structure. The air was thick with the scent of earth and vegetation, a far cry from the sterile environments he was accustomed to. As his vision cleared, Zex became acutely aware of his predicament. His arms and legs were bound with what looked like simple rope, yet try as he might, he couldn't break free. His armor had been stripped away, leaving him feeling naked and vulnerable. "I wouldn't struggle if I were you," a voice said, startling Zex. He turned his head to see the human from before, the one with the bow, sitting calmly in the corner of the room. "Those ropes are reinforced with graphene fibers. You'd have better luck chewing through steel." Zex snarled, baring his sharp teeth. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, human. When the Galactic Confederacy learns of this—" "They won't," the human interrupted, standing up and moving closer. In the better light, Zex could see it was a female, her features sharp and weathered, eyes glinting with intelligence. "Your ship's been destroyed, your communications jammed. As far as your people are concerned, you've simply disappeared." The alien assassin felt a chill run down his spine. This couldn't be happening. These primitives couldn't possibly have outmaneuvered him so thoroughly. "I am Arya," the human continued, her voice level. "And you, Zex, are going to tell me everything about why you're here and who sent you." Zex's eyes widened in surprise. "How do you know my name?" Arya smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We've been expecting you, or someone like you, for quite some time. Did you really think we wouldn't notice the increased alien activity in our solar system? That we wouldn't prepare?" For the first time since his arrival on Earth, Zex felt a grudging respect for these humans. They were far more perceptive and resourceful than he'd given them credit for. "I won't tell you anything," Zex spat, clinging to his training and pride. Arya shrugged. "You will. Not because we'll torture you. We're better than that. You'll talk because soon you'll realize that cooperating with us is your only hope for survival." Before Zex could respond, a commotion outside caught their attention. Arya moved to the window, her body tensing as she peered out. "Damn," she muttered. "Looks like your friends didn't get the memo about your failure." In the distance, Zex could hear the telltale whine of plasma engines. A surge of hope rose in his chest. The Confederacy had sent backup. Arya turned back to him, her expression grim. "Here's the deal, Zex. More of your kind are coming, and I'm betting they're not here for a friendly chat. You have two choices. You can stay here, bound and helpless, and hope they find you before we're forced to eliminate you as a security risk. Or you can help us repel this invasion and maybe, just maybe, earn yourself a ticket home." Zex laughed bitterly. "Why would I help you? My people will rescue me, and then we'll turn this pitiful planet to ash." Arya's eyes hardened. "Because, Zex, if your people were coming to rescue you, they would have done it quietly. This," she gestured towards the sounds of approaching ships, "this is a full-scale assault. They're not here for you. They're here to wipe us out. And you along with us. You're as much a liability to them now as you are to us." The words hit Zex like a physical blow. He knew the protocols, knew that failed assassins were considered compromised and expendable. As much as he wanted to deny it, Arya's words rang true. "What? What do you want me to do?" Zex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Arya began untying his bonds. "First, you're going to tell me everything you know about their tactics, their weaknesses. Then, you're going to help us fight them off." As the ropes fell away, Zex rubbed his wrists, considering his options. He was trained to endure torture, to die before betraying the Confederacy. But faced with the reality of his situation, abandoned on an alien world, marked for death by his own people, those ironclad loyalties began to waver. "All right," he said finally, meeting Aria's gaze. "I'll help you. But don't think for a second this makes us allies." Aria nodded, tossing him a set of Earth clothes. "Wouldn't dream of it. Now gear up. We've got a planet to defend." As Zex donned the unfamiliar garments, he couldn't help but marvel at the absurdity of his situation. Hours ago, he had been the galaxy's apex predator, viewing humans as little more than insects. Now he was relying on them for his very survival. Outside, the sounds of battle began to echo through the forest. Plasma bolts lit up the night sky, answered by the twang of bowstrings and the staccato bursts of human firearms. Aria handed Zex a bow similar to her own. At his questioning look, she smirked. "Your fancy guns won't work here. We've blanketed the area with electromagnetic disruptors. You'll have to do things our way." Zex hefted the bow, feeling its weight, the tension in the string. It was a far cry from his usual weaponry, but there was an elegance to its simplicity. As they stepped out into the chaos of battle, Zex saw humans moving with practiced precision, using the forest as cover, striking at the invaders with devastating effectiveness. The alien ships, for all their advanced technology, were struggling to pinpoint targets amidst the dense foliage. "Still think we're primitives?" Aria asked, notching an arrow and letting it fly. The projectile struck an alien soldier squarely in the chest, dropping him instantly. Zex shook his head, a new understanding dawning. "I think," he said, raising his own bow, "that the Confederacy has made a grave mistake in underestimating Earth." Together, the unlikely allies plunged into the fray. Zex found himself adapting quickly to the bow, his assassin's instincts translating well to this new form of combat. He moved through the forest like a shadow, each arrow finding its mark with deadly accuracy. As the battle raged on, Zex realized something that shook him to his core. He was enjoying this. The raw, physical nature of the combat, the reliance on skill and instinct rather than technology. It awakened something primal within him. Hours passed in a blur of action. The alien invaders, caught off guard by the humans' tactics and their own malfunctioning technology, began to retreat. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, an eerie silence fell over the battlefield. Zex found Aria standing atop a ridge, surveying the aftermath. Her bow was still in hand, her quiver empty. She turned to him, fatigue evident in her stance, but a fierce pride shining in her eyes. "Not bad for a bunch of primitives, huh?" she said, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. Zex nodded, a newfound respect coloring his voice. "I've never seen anything like it. Your people fought with a ferocity and skill that rivals the best warriors in the galaxy." Aria's expression turned serious. "This was just the beginning, wasn't it? They'll be back." "Yes," Zex confirmed, his mind racing with the implications of what had transpired. "The Confederacy doesn't take defeat lightly. They'll return, and in greater numbers." For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of the coming conflict hanging heavy between them. Then, Aria turned to Zex, her gaze piercing. "So, assassin, what will you do now? Your mission's a failure. Your people have abandoned you. Where do your loyalties lie?" Zex looked out over the forest, scenes from the battle replaying in his mind. He thought of the courage he'd witnessed, the ingenuity and determination of these humans who had so thoroughly upended his worldview. He began, surprised by the certainty in his own voice. "I want to help, to fight alongside you. The Confederacy needs to be stopped, and I believe Earth might just be the planet to do it." Aria studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Welcome to the Resistance, Zex. I hope you're ready for one hell of a fight." As they made their way back to the human encampment, Zex felt a strange sense of liberation. He had come to Earth as a conqueror, only to find himself humbled, enlightened, and now aligned with those he once considered inferior. The hunt, he realized, had transformed him in ways he never could have imagined. And as the sun rose over the battlefield, Zex knew that the true war, for Earth, for the galaxy, and for his own redemption, was only just beginning. The confrontation. The weeks following the initial battle were a blur of activity. Zex found himself thrust into the heart of Earth's defense preparations, his knowledge of Confederacy tactics and technology proving invaluable. The human resistance, far more organized and widespread than he had initially believed, absorbed every scrap of information with an eagerness that both impressed and unnerved him. Arya had become his constant companion, her initial distrust gradually giving way to a wary respect. They spent long hours poring over star charts, discussing potential Confederacy strategies, and adapting human weaponry to counter alien technology. "You're sure about this?" Arya asked one evening, gesturing to the holographic display of Earth's solar system. Red markers indicated potential invasion routes, each one meticulously plotted based on Zex's inside knowledge. Zex nodded, his crimson eyes reflecting the glow of the hologram. "The Confederacy will try to establish a beachhead, likely on your moon. From there, they'll launch a full-scale invasion." Arya's brow furrowed. "Our moon defenses are minimal at best. We've always focused on protecting the planet itself." "Then that's where we need to strike first," Zex said, his voice filled with a determination that surprised even him. "If we can repel their lunar assault, we might buy enough time to bolster Earth's defenses." A slow smile spread across Arya's face. "You know, for someone who came here to kill us, you've become quite the advocate for humanity." Zex felt a warmth in his chest, an unfamiliar sensation that he quickly suppressed. "Don't read too much into it, human. I simply prefer to be on the winning side." Their planning session was interrupted by a commotion outside. Arya and Zex rushed to the window to see a crowd gathering in the compound's central square. At its center stood a figure Zex recognized all too well, Krell Vox, the very alien he had been sent to eliminate. "Well," Arya muttered, "looks like your old target decided to make an appearance." They made their way outside, pushing through the throng of excited humans. Krell Vox stood tall, his iridescent skin shimmering in the fading daylight. His 4 eyes widened in shock as he spotted Zex. "You?" Krell exclaimed, taking a step back. "How is this possible? You're working with the humans now." Zex moved forward, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that was no longer there. "Krell Vox, I should have known you'd surface eventually." Arya stepped between them, her voice cutting through the tension. Everyone calmed down. "Krell, we've been wondering when you'd show up. Care to explain why the Confederacy wants you dead so badly?" Krell's eyes darted nervously between Arya and Zex. I have information. Information that could bring down the entire Confederacy power structure." A hush fell over the crowd. Zex felt his heart racing. Could it be true? Was this the reason for his mission? "Explain," he demanded, his assassin's instincts warring with his newfound alliance. Krell took a deep breath. "The Confederacy's entire foundation is built on a lie. They've been manipulating member species, engineering conflicts to keep everyone dependent on their protection. But that's not all." He paused, his eyes locking with Zex's. "They've known about humanity's potential for centuries. They've been actively working to keep Earth isolated, afraid of what might happen if humans ever joined the galactic community." The revelation hit Zex like a physical blow. Everything he had believed, everything he had fought for, it was all based on deception. Arya's voice cut through his thoughts. "That's why they sent you, isn't it, Zex? To silence Krell before he could expose the truth." Zex nodded slowly, his mind reeling. "It appears I was nothing more than an unwitting pawn in their game." The crowd erupted into murmurs of shock and anger. Arya raised her hand, silencing them. "This changes everything. Krell, we'll need every scrap of information you have." "Zex." She turned to the former assassin, her expression unreadable. "Are you still with us?" Zex straightened, feeling the weight of every human eye upon him. In that moment, he made a decision that would alter the course of not just his life, but potentially the entire galaxy. "I am," he said firmly. "The Confederacy used me, lied to me. It's time they learned the true cost of their deception." A cheer went up from the crowd. Arya nodded, a hint of pride in her eyes. "Good, because we're going to need every advantage we can get." As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the compound. A young human rushed up to Arya, his face pale. "Ma'am, we're detecting multiple ships entering the solar system." It started. Arya's expression hardened. "All right, people, this is what we've been preparing for. To your stations." The crowd dispersed, each person moving with purpose and determination. Zex found himself impressed once again by the human's discipline and resolve. "Zex," Arya called, tossing him a bow. "You're with me. We're heading to the front lines." As they made their way to the defensive positions, Zex felt a strange mix of emotions. Fear, certainly. He knew better than anyone the destructive capabilities of the Confederacy. But there was something else too, a sense of purpose, of rightness, that he had never experienced before. They reached the outskirts of the compound, where human fighters were already taking up positions. The sky above was alight with the telltale streaks of entering spacecraft. Arya turned to Zex, her face illuminated by the otherworldly glow. "Last chance to back out, assassin. Once those ships land, there's no going back." Zex knocked an arrow, feeling the familiar tension in the bowstring. He looked at the humans around him. Determination etched on every face, not a hint of fear or hesitation. These were not the primitives he had once dismissed. These were warriors, ready to defend their home against impossible odds. "I'm exactly where I need to be," he replied, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. Arya grinned, a fierce, predatory expression that sent a shiver down Zex's spine. "Then let's show the Confederacy what happens when they mess with Earth." The first ships touched down, ramps descending to disgorge waves of Confederacy troops. Zex recognized the insignias of elite shock troopers, warriors he had once fought alongside. Now, they were the enemy. "Hold," Arya commanded, her voice carrying across the line of defenders. "Wait for them to enter the EMP field." Zex watched as the alien soldiers advanced, their energy weapons humming with lethal potential. Just as the first line reached the tree line, Arya gave the signal. Now! A barrage of arrows filled the sky, each one tipped with the same electromagnetic disruptor compound that had negated Zex's technology. The effect was instantaneous. Confederacy weapons sputtered and died. Shields flickered out of existence, and communication devices went silent. In that moment of confusion, the human defenders struck. Arrows found their marks with deadly accuracy, while others charged forward with a variety of melee weapons. Zex found himself in the thick of the fighting, his assassin's training melding seamlessly with the humans' guerrilla tactics. Hours passed in a blur of combat. The Confederacy troops, initially caught off guard, began to adapt. But for every tactic they employed, the humans seemed to have a counter. Zex watched in awe as Arya directed the defense, her strategies consistently one step ahead of the invaders. As dawn broke, the tide of battle began to turn. The Confederacy forces, facing far stiffer resistance than they had anticipated, began to retreat. Cheers erupted from the human lines as the last of the alien ships lifted off, leaving behind a battlefield strewn with advanced technology now rendered useless. Zex found Arya amidst the celebration, her face smudged with dirt and blood, but her eyes shining with triumph. "We did it," she said, her voice hoarse from shouting orders. "We actually did it." This was just the first wave, Zex cautioned, even as he felt a swell of pride at what they had accomplished. "They'll be back, and in greater numbers." Arya nodded, her expression turning serious. "I know, but now we have proof that we can stand against them. That humanity isn't just going to roll over and surrender." As they surveyed the aftermath of the battle, Zex felt a profound shift within himself. He had come to this planet as a harbinger of death, convinced of his own superiority and the righteousness of his cause. Now he stood as a defender of Earth, aligned with a species he had once dismissed as insignificant. "What happens now?" he asked, realizing that for the first time in his life, he was uncertain of his path. Arya placed a hand on his shoulder, the gesture both alien and comforting. "Now we prepare. We take what we've learned, adapt, and get ready for the next confrontation." "And Zex?" She looked at him, her gaze intense. "We do it together." As the sun rose over the battlefield, casting long shadows across the remnants of the Confederacy's failed invasion, Zex understood that this was more than just a military victory. It was the dawn of a new era, for Earth, for himself, and potentially for the entire galaxy. The confrontation had only just begun, but already the impossible seemed within reach. Humanity had faced its first true extraterrestrial threat and emerged victorious. And Zex, once their would-be destroyer, now stood as their unlikely ally in the battles to come. The Alliance. In the months following the initial invasion attempt, Earth underwent a transformation unlike anything in its history. The revelation of extraterrestrial life and the subsequent battle had united humanity in ways previously thought impossible. Nations that had once been bitter enemies now worked together, pooling resources and knowledge in preparation for the next Confederacy assault. At the heart of this global alliance was an unlikely pair: Arya, the human archer who had bested a galactic assassin, and Zex, the very assassin who had come to appreciate the ingenuity and resilience of the species he once dismissed. They stood now in a vast underground complex, surrounded by a dizzying array of technology. Some human, some salvaged from the Confederacy's failed invasion force. Engineers and scientists from around the world worked tirelessly, reverse engineering alien tech and integrating it with human innovation. "It's impressive," Zex admitted, his crimson eyes scanning the bustling activity. "I never imagined humans could adapt so quickly." Arya smiled, a hint of pride in her voice. "That's always been our strength. We may not have the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but we know how to improvise, how to take what we have and make it better." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Ilara Chen, Earth's leading genotechnologist. "Arya, Zex," she greeted them, her eyes alight with excitement. "We've had a breakthrough. You're going to want to see this." They followed Dr. Chen to a sealed laboratory. Inside, a team of scientists huddled around what appeared to be a modified version of a Confederacy energy weapon. "We've managed to replicate the electromagnetic disruption field on a larger scale," Dr. Chen explained, gesturing to the device. "This prototype should be capable of disabling Confederacy tech within a 5-mile radius." Zex's antennae twitched with interest. "Impressive. But the Confederacy will be expecting this tactic now. They'll have countermeasures." Dr. Chen's smile widened. "That's where you come in, Zex. Your knowledge of Confederacy protocols has been invaluable. We've incorporated a rotating frequency algorithm based on your insights. It should be nearly impossible for them to adapt in real time." As the scientists launched into a technical explanation of the device's workings, Zex found himself marveling at the scene. Months ago, he would have scoffed at the idea of humans creating anything that could challenge Confederacy technology. Now, he was actively contributing to innovations that might turn the tide of an interstellar war. Arya noticed his pensive expression. "Credit where it's due, Zex. We couldn't have come this far without you." Before Zex could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the complex. A voice crackled over the intercom system. "All personnel to battle stations. Multiple Confederacy ships detected entering the solar system." The laboratory erupted into controlled chaos, scientists rushing to secure their work while security personnel moved to predetermined positions. Arya and Zex shared a look of grim determination before sprinting towards the command center. They arrived to find the room abuzz with activity. Holographic displays showed the approaching Confederacy fleet, far larger than the initial invasion force. General Yamazaki, the grizzled veteran in charge of Earth's global defense, turned to them as they entered. "It's time to put all our preparations to the test," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Zex, what can you tell us about their formation?" Zex studied the holographic display intently. "They're deploying in a Skarian assault pattern. It's designed to overwhelm planetary defenses through sheer numbers." He pointed to a larger ship at the center of the formation. "That's the command vessel. If we can take it out, it will throw their entire strategy into disarray." Arya leaned in, her eyes narrowing. "But to get to it, we'd have to punch through their entire fleet. Even with our new tech, that's a tall order." A thoughtful silence fell over the command center. Then, unexpectedly, it was broken by a quiet chuckle from Zex. All eyes turned to the alien. "What's so funny?" Arya asked, a hint of irritation in her voice. Zex's mandibles clicked in what Arya had come to recognize as his version of a smile. "I just realized. We're thinking like the Confederacy. Overwhelming force, head-on assault. But that's not how Earth won its first victory, is it?" Understanding dawned on Arya's face. "You're right. We won because we were unpredictable, because we used the environment to our advantage." General Yamazaki nodded slowly. "What do you have in mind?" Over the next hour, a plan took shape, one that combined Zex's insider knowledge of Confederacy tactics with humanity's penchant for unconventional warfare. As the details were ironed out, Zex found himself impressed once again by the humans' ability to think outside established paradigms. The plan was audacious, borderline insane by Confederacy standards. It involved using the moon's gravitational field to slingshot a small team, led by Arya and Zex, directly towards the Confederacy command ship. Meanwhile, Earth's defense forces would engage the main fleet, using the new electromagnetic disruptors to create chaos in the enemy ranks. As the time for deployment neared, Arya and Zex found themselves in the launch bay, surrounded by a hand-picked team of Earth's best soldiers. The atmosphere was tense, each person acutely aware of the stakes. Arya turned to Zex, her expression solemn. "You know, when you first landed on Earth, I never would have imagined we'd end up here, about to fly into the heart of a Confederacy fleet together." Zex nodded, feeling a complex mix of emotions he was still learning to navigate. Life, it seems, has a way of defying expectations, especially on this planet. A technician approached, informing them that the launch window was opening. As they made their final preparations, Zex felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Arya, her eyes filled with a fierce determination. "Whatever happens up there," she said, her voice low but intense, "I'm glad you're with us. Zex, you've become more than just an ally. You're a friend." The word friend sent a jolt through Zex. In all his years as an assassin, he had never allowed himself such connections. Yet here, on this planet he had come to destroy, he had found something he never knew he was missing. "As are you, Arya," he replied, surprised by the emotion in his own voice. "Whatever the outcome, it has been an honor to fight alongside Earth." With a final nod of understanding between them, they boarded the specially modified craft. As the launch countdown began, Zex looked out at the assembled humans, scientists, soldiers, leaders, all united in their determination to defend their world. In that moment, he knew with absolute certainty that he had chosen the right side. The Confederacy, for all its technological might, could never match the spirit he had witnessed on Earth. The craft's engines roared to life, and as they shot towards the stars, Zex felt a sense of purpose unlike anything he had known before. This was more than a battle for survival. It was a fight for a future where humanity could take its rightful place among the stars, not as subjects of the Confederacy, but as free beings charting their own destiny. As Earth faded behind them and the looming shape of the Confederacy fleet grew larger, Zex readied himself for the coming confrontation. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he faced them not as a lone assassin, but as part of something greater, an alliance that just might reshape the galaxy. The final stand. The vastness of space enveloped their small craft as it hurtled towards the heart of the Confederacy fleet. Zex, seated beside Arya, felt a familiar tension building within him, the calm before the storm that every seasoned warrior knows well. But this time, it was different. This wasn't just another mission. This was a fight for a world he had come to respect, perhaps even love. "We're approaching the outer defense perimeter," the pilot announced, her voice steady despite the enormity of their task. "Activating stealth systems now." Zex watched as the ship's exterior shimmered, the revolutionary cloaking technology, a fusion of Confederacy tech and human ingenuity, rendering them nearly invisible. Nearly, but not quite. "They'll detect us eventually," Zex warned, his eyes fixed on the looming shape of the Confederacy command ship. "We need to be ready to move fast when that happens." Arya nodded, checking her bow one last time. The weapon, like everything else on this mission, was a testament to the alliance between human and alien technology. Carbon fiber limbs housed a compact electromagnetic accelerator, capable of launching arrows at speeds that would make even the most advanced Confederacy armor seem like paper. "Team 2, report status." Arya spoke into her comm unit. "In position and ready," came the reply. "We'll create the diversion on your mark." As their ship drew closer to the massive command vessel, alarms suddenly blared to life. "We've been detected," the pilot shouted, her hands flying over the controls. Evasive maneuvers. The small craft jerked violently as it dodged incoming fire. Zex gripped his seat, his mind racing through possible scenarios. "We need to get closer," he yelled over the chaos. "If we can't dock, this whole mission is for nothing." Arya's voice cut through the din, calm and authoritative. "Team 2, execute diversion now. All units prepare for imminent engagement." Across the battlefield, a series of explosions blossomed against the hulls of several Confederacy ships. The carefully planned diversion had its intended effect. The command ship's attention was momentarily diverted, its defenses shifting to address the new threat. "This is our chance," Zex said, locking eyes with Arya. "We may not get another." With a nod of agreement, Arya gave the order. Their pilot, displaying skill that would have impressed even the most seasoned Confederacy helmsman, threaded the needle between bursts of enemy fire. With a bone-jarring thud, they made contact with the command ship's hull. "Docking clamps engaged," the pilot reported. "You're clear to proceed. Good luck in there." Zex, Arya, and their small team of elite soldiers moved swiftly through the airlock. The familiar corridors of a Confederacy vessel stretched before them, but to Zex, it all felt different now. He was seeing it through new eyes, the eyes of someone fighting for a cause greater than himself. "Remember the plan," Arya whispered as they moved deeper into the ship. "We need to reach the central control room. Once there, Zex can initiate the shutdown sequence, and we can broadcast Krell's evidence to the entire fleet." They encountered resistance almost immediately. Confederacy soldiers, caught off guard by the audacity of the human attack, nonetheless rallied quickly. The narrow corridors erupted in a storm of energy weapon fire and the whisper-quiet hiss of Arya's advance arrows. Zex found himself fighting alongside the humans with a synchronicity that surprised even him. His assassin's training, combined with the unorthodox tactics of Earth's soldiers, made for a formidable combination. They pushed forward, leaving a trail of disabled Confederacy troops in their wake. As they neared the central control room, the resistance intensified. "They know what we're after," Zex growled, ducking behind a bulkhead as energy bolts sizzled past. "We're running out of time." Arya nodded grimly. "Then we make our own opening." She reached into her pack, pulling out a device that Zex recognized as one of Dr. Chen's prototypes. "Everyone, visors down." The device activated with a high-pitched whine, sending out a pulse that overloaded the Confederacy's local defense systems. In the momentary confusion, Zex and Arya led the charge, bursting into the central control room. What followed was a blur of combat. Zex found himself face to face with the ship's commander, a towering Skarian he had once considered a mentor. "Traitor," the commander bellowed, swinging a massive energy blade. Zex parried the blow with his own weapon, a hybrid of Confederacy tech and Earth metallurgy. "No," he replied, his voice steady. "I've simply found a better way." As Zex engaged the commander, Area, and the rest of the team fought to secure the room. Minutes stretched like hours, the fate of Earth hanging in the balance with every exchange of blows. Finally, with a move that combined Confederacy martial arts with a very human element of unpredictability, Zex disarmed the commander. "It's over," he said, his blade hovering near the Skarian's throat. "Order your forces to stand down." The commander's eyes blazed with fury, but Zex saw something else there too. Fear. Fear of the impossible becoming possible. Fear of a primitive world that had done what no other could, stand against the might of the Confederacy. "Zex," Area called out. "We're in." Initiating the broadcast now. With the push of a button, Krulvox's face appeared on every screen in the fleet. His message, detailing the Confederacy's lies and manipulations, rang out across the cosmos. Zex watched as confusion, then anger, then realization spread across the faces of the Confederacy personnel in the control room. "You see now." Zex addressed them, his voice carrying the weight of his own journey. "Everything we believed, everything we fought for, it was built on deception. But there's another way. Earth has shown me that." As Krell's message concluded, an eerie silence fell over the ship. Then, slowly at first, but with growing momentum, Confederacy ships across the fleet began powering down their weapons. Area stepped up beside Zex, her bow lowered but ready. "Is it over?" she asked, her voice a mix of hope and disbelief. Zex looked out at the stars, at the planet blue and beautiful below them, and at the human woman who had shown him a better path. "No," he said softly, "it's just beginning." In the days that followed, the galaxy witnessed an upheaval unlike any in recorded history. The Galactic Confederacy, its lies exposed, began to fracture. Many worlds, inspired by Earth's example, declared their independence. Others sought new alliances, looking to the upstart human world for guidance. As for Zex, he found himself in a role he never could have imagined. Ambassador between Earth and the fragments of the former Confederacy. His unique perspective, bridging two worlds, proved invaluable in the complex dance of interstellar diplomacy. One evening, as Earth celebrated its newfound place among the stars, Zex stood on a balcony overlooking a city gleaming with a mix of human and alien technology. Area joined him, a comfortable silence falling between them. "Did you ever imagine it would end like this?" she asked finally, gazing up at the sky where Confederacy ships now moved peacefully alongside human vessels. Zex shook his head, a very human gesture he had adopted. "Never. When I first came to Earth, I thought I was bringing the end. Instead, I found a new beginning." Area smiled, placing a hand on his arm. "So, what's next for the galaxy's most unlikely hero?" Zex looked out at the horizon, where the first stars were beginning to appear. "There's still so much to do, so many worlds to connect, so much healing to be done." He turned to Area, his expression softening. "But whatever comes next, I'm glad I'll face it with Earth, with you by my side." As night fell over the city, Zex reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had come to Earth as a harbinger of destruction, only to find redemption, purpose, and a place he could truly call home. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges yet to come. But for the first time in his life, Zex looked forward to that uncertainty. For in the spirit of humanity, in their resilience and creativity, he had found something the Confederacy could never offer: hope. And with that hope, the promise of a better tomorrow. For Earth, for himself, and for the entire galaxy. The end was indeed just the beginning. And Zex, once the galaxy's deadliest assassin, now stood ready to help write the next chapter in the cosmic story of humanity's ascent to the stars.